Hey guys, tonight we're slipping back into the cobbled heart of 17th century London, right into the sweltering chaos of the summer of 1665. You're not a lord or a lady, just an ordinary Londoner waking up in a wooden bed that creaks like it's trying to warn you. The air is thick, too thick. It smells like old smoke, stale sweat, and something worse. Something metallic and sweet and wrong. That's fear, basically. It has a smell, and you're getting used to it. Your shirt clings to your back before you even step outside. The sun's already up, but nobody's chirping. Not the birds, not the kids who used to play knucklebones by the alley. You open your window and see a neighbor 2 doors down nailing thick boards over his own doorway. He looks up and nods grimly, like he's seen something in the night you're about to meet in the day. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And I'd love to know, where are you listening from? And what time is it where you are now? Dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You rise slowly. There's no rushing. What's the point? The usual sounds of life, fishmongers shouting, horses clattering, drunk apprentices arguing about dice are muffled today, like the whole city is holding its breath. It should be just another hot day, but it isn't. You trudge downstairs, careful not to trip over the chamber pot your landlord still hasn't emptied. He hasn't been himself lately, ever since that puffy swelling showed up under his arm. You said it looked like a boil. He said it itched like sin. Now he hasn't moved from bed in 2 days. And last night, you could have sworn you heard him singing to nobody. You step outside into a street where smoke curls in lazy tendrils from hearths that haven't been fed since yesterday. People move slower now. They keep to one side of the path, leaving gaps that weren't there a week ago. Nobody smiles, not even the drunks. A boy passes you holding a wooden pail. He's wearing his shirt inside out. His mother believes it confuses the plague. Keeps it off the scent, she says. You nod politely, though you're not sure how that works. Historians still argue whether such folk practices were sincere acts of desperation or social rituals to mask the fear. Down the alley, someone bangs a pot. You think it's a street crier, until you hear the words, "Bring out your dead." You freeze. It's early for that. Usually they come at dusk. The cart appears, pulled by a bony mule and guided by a man whose face is wrapped in cloth, soaked in vinegar. He doesn't look at you. He just stares forward, eyes bloodshot, repeating the call like he's lost count of how many doors he's knocked on today. Behind him, a small bundle lies awkwardly at the edge of the cart. A little foot sticks out. You swallow hard. You head toward the market square, not because you need anything in particular, but because you need normal, or the ghost of it. At least there you might hear a lute, a shouted joke, or the clang of a dropped pan. As you walk, you notice more doors marked with a red cross. Some are fresh, the paint still wet and sticky in the heat. Next to one is the chalk scrawl, "Lord have mercy upon us." The irony is, the people inside probably don't even have the plague yet. They just coughed at the wrong moment. Once the watchman hears it, you're shut in. 2 weeks minimum. Sometimes they nail the door from the outside. Sometimes they forget to come back. And now, of course, your stomach growls. Hunger's a strange companion these days. It visits at the worst times, like an annoying friend who never gets the hint. You can't tell if it's normal hunger or the anxious kind that comes from watching someone cough too many times over stew. You pass a beggar muttering psalms under his breath. He's holding a crudely painted wooden sign, "Woe to Babylon, for her sins are many." Someone's tucked a wilted sprig of lavender into his sleeve. You're not sure if it's for the smell or for the symbolism. Then, at the corner of Pudding Lane, a name that's never not funny. Even now you see a cat. It's grooming itself lazily under a cart, completely unbothered by human panic. And you pause, because last week the alderman said cats might be spreading the plague, and rats, or maybe it's the foreigners, or the wind, or the stars. No one agrees on the cause. That's the worst part. Well, one of the worst parts. A woman stands at her door, sprinkling salt onto the threshold. She mutters something about keeping evil spirits out. Her apron is stained with something dark. Maybe wine, maybe blood, maybe berries. She's not crying, but her eyes have that hollow, bottomless look people get when sleep's just a rumor. In the distance, a bell rings slowly. Not a church bell, the dead bell. You count the tolls. 6. That's either a big family or a stubborn one. You turn down another lane, the sun glinting off shattered glass from someone's smashed window. You're trying to remember who lived there. Was it the cheesemonger? No. The woman with the limp and all those pigeons. Your mind drifts to supper. You should eat early today. Just in case the carts come sooner, you still have a heel of bread, some onions, and that chunk of hard cheese you're not sure is still cheese. But at least it's food, not like last week, when you caught your neighbor boiling shoe leather for broth. You pause at your door. It's still unmarked. For now, you press a hand to your chest, more out of habit than anything. Heart still beats, lungs still work. You're still here, but the city is different. Not just sick changed, you feel it. Like the rules are bending, like the shadows watch you more closely than they used to. You breathe in deep, and the air tastes of soot, and something else, something old, ancient, even. London is an old city. She's seen fire and flood and kings who lost their heads. But this is something primal. And yes, you are in the thick of it. You step back inside just as the wind picks up, not a strong wind, more like the city exhaling. You latch the door gently, as though slamming it might wake something. The wood is warped, slightly sticky in the summer heat. You press your back against it for a second, listening. There it is again, the subtle groan of London, not the noise of horses or laughter or church bells, but the creak of old beams and whispers between stones. It's the kind of sound a city makes when it's holding something in, like a cough it doesn't want to admit. When you venture back out later that day, the light has changed. It has that dusty, coppery hue that makes every shadow look suspicious. You head toward Cornhill, partly to check on a friend and partly to eavesdrop on strangers. Lately, gossip is your main source of news and entertainment. The streets are narrower than you remembered. You've always known London was cramped, but now that everyone's trying not to touch each other, the space feels even tighter. You keep your elbows tucked, breathing through a strip of cloth that smells faintly of rosemary. Someone said herbs ward off the plague. Someone also said it was punishment for vanity. So grain of salt. You pass by a water seller who's shouting about holy well water, supposedly blessed by a monk who died twice and came back with advice from heaven. The price is triple today. People still buy it. Up ahead, A small crowd gathers around a man waving a pamphlet. New signs of divine judgment, he shouts. And everyone leans closer. You catch snippets, visions of angels, blood-colored moons, a fish with 2 heads found in the Thames. The usual? One man scoffs. You lot'll believe anything with a headline. Another slaps him on the back. Better than sitting at home counting boils. You smile a little, just a little. A woman bumps into you accidentally. You think. She mutters an apology and keeps walking. You pat your pocket. Coins still there. Good. You're not sure if pickpocketing counts as sin when half the city's already knocking on heaven's door. As you reach Cheapside, the tone changes, more serious now. People speak in hushed tones about which parishes are worst off. St. Giles is practically silent, too many deaths to keep up. Some say the plague started there. Others blame St. Sepulchres. Historians still argue whether it truly began in the poorer western wards, or if the disease had crept in silently through wealthier homes first, hidden behind better curtains. A man selling baked apples tells you that his cousin's street lost 14 people in 3 days. He grins while saying it, like it's a contest. You nod grimly and buy one. It's warm and tastes faintly of cinnamon, soothing, even if the heat makes you sweat more than you'd like. And then you see it, a small scrap of white fabric tied to a door knocker, fluttering weakly in the breeze. It's the unofficial symbol now means someone inside is ill, maybe dying. Or maybe they've already died and no one's come to collect them. You pass 5 more just like it before you even reach your friend's alley. His name is Tom, works well, worked as a glove maker. You haven't seen him in a week. You bang on the door, no answer. You wait. Then a voice from an upper window. He's gone. Not the plague, though. Took off to Kent. You nod, trying not to show relief. At least someone's getting out, not you. Though, you're tied here, not by obligation, but by logistics. You don't own a horse. You don't have distant cousins with cottages in the country. You're one of the many those who stay not out of bravery, but because there's nowhere else to go. A sudden shout startles you. Up ahead, 2 men argue over whether a butcher's cart carried plague meat. One swears he saw a black spot on the pig's belly. The other says it was soot. You edge past them, avoiding eye contact, because, truthfully, both sound plausible, and you're not in the mood to fight about dead pigs today. The tension in the air is like overwound string. You feel it in your shoulders, in your jaw. Every conversation feels like it could tip into panic with a single word. You wonder how long people can go without snapping. Down the next street, you see a window with a candle still burning in it. That used to be a sign of welcome. Now, it's a warning the sick are inside. Stay away, or worse, no one left to snuff it out. Then someone sneezes. 3 people jump. The sneezer, a kid. Maybe 9, holds up his hands in panic. It's just dust. You believe him. But others don't. An older man mutters about finding the watchman. Another shakes his head, already walking away. The boy's mother grabs his arm and drags him indoors, slamming the door hard enough to shake dust from the roof beam. Welcome to a city where a cough can cost your family their freedom. You continue past a row of alehouses, most closed, their signs swinging lazily in the breeze. One has a chalkboard with today's special onion broth and hard tack. Someone's added a drawing of a skull beside it. Art, or warning, hard to say. You finally reach the edge of town, near a parish line. A small bonfire crackles here, tended by two old women burning linens and dried orange peels, keeps the air clean. One says, "You don't argue. She might be right. She might also be a little mad. You nod and warm your hands anyway. The fire feels good. You glance out beyond the wall where the city gives way to green. Far in the distance, you see a small figure moving across the field. Could be a farmer, could be a traveler. You wonder if they're heading somewhere safe, or if they're just bringing the plague with them. The sun starts to dip, casting long shadows across the uneven stones. Time to head back. Curfew's not official, but once the bells start, nobody wants to be out, not with the dogs howling and the rats getting bold. You walk quickly, your footsteps echoing. Somewhere, a door slams. Somewhere else, a baby cries. The city isn't dead yet, but it's close enough to whisper. You barely sleep. The heat presses against your skin like wet parchment, and your dreams come in fevered flashes, winding alleyways, red crosses, voices calling your name from behind boarded doors. When you wake, you're not sure if it's morning or just a paler shade of night. There's a dull ache in your neck. You reach up, half dreading what your fingers might find. Just a knot. You press on it anyway, just to check. Still just a knot. For now, the streets are quiet again. London's mornings used to be full of clatter and argument fishwives shouting prices, coalmen grumbling over their backs. But today, only the crows call out. You pull on your shirt, damp and slightly sour, and step outside. That's when you hear it, a cough. Sharp, repeated, not yours. You turn slowly. It's your neighbor across the way, Mr. Felton, the tanner. He's hunched over, hands on knees, his face flushed a peculiar grey. You've known him for years. You once drank together at the Goose and Firkin. You helped him chase a goose through the market once, laughing until you nearly wept. Now he's coughing, and you are backing away. There's guilt, of course, but not enough to get any closer. He sees you. You wave a small one, apologetic. He doesn't wave back, just wipes his mouth and stumbles back inside. And then you scratch your arm. Not hard, not enough to hurt, just an itch. A moment of suspicion crackles through your brain like flint. You've heard the stories. It starts with an itch, then the lumps, then the heat, then then you stop needing to worry about anything, really. People say the plague gives you warning, that it starts gentle, but others say it hits like a hammer. One moment you're walking to buy eggs, the next you're raving about black-winged angels and trying to eat your shoe. Historians still argue whether the plague was always the same disease, whether the bubonic form with its signature lumps was what everyone feared, or whether some faster, deadlier version slipped in too. Pneumonic, they say, could kill in a day. Some even whisper about a third type, one that comes without warning at all. You scratch again. Still nothing. Your landlady knocks and leaves a basket by your door. Bread, an onion, 2 carrots that look like they've seen better centuries. She's still speaking through a crack in the door. More deaths on Mincing Lane. She says, 5 in one house. Man died at the table. You nod. She doesn't see you. I think it's in the milk, she adds, then vanishes down the stairs before you can ask what milk she means. You don't drink milk. Later, you head to the yard with your wash bucket, not for clothes you've given up on clean shirts, but for water. You need something cool to splash on your face. The pump is stiff. You heave on the handle like you're trying to summon rain from stone. Finally, it groans and spits a few drops. You catch them with a cupped hand. It tastes like rust and something vaguely lemony, which is unsettling. You wonder when someone last cleaned the pump, or if they ever did. A boy from across the yard stares at you as he rubs his arms. He's got a red mark along his collarbone. Might be a bruise, might not. You nod at him. He doesn't nod back. No one wants to be seen too closely these days. That afternoon, a vendor passes by yelling about onions raw, strong ones said to draw the sickness from the air. You buy one and hang it in your window like some desperate medieval Christmas ornament. It swings gently, looking both sad and defiant. You find yourself watching the street more now, not people doors. The number of them boarded up, the rate of new crosses appearing, and the ones with nothing at all, but no activity, either. Silent houses. They're worse somehow. The mystery of them. Every little bodily twinge becomes suspect. You're hyper-aware of everything: your pulse, your temperature, your breath. You wonder if you've always breathed this loudly. Has your heart always fluttered after stairs? Maybe you're just tired. Or maybe you visit the apothecary, a tiny man with large spectacles and a voice like a mosquito's sigh. He sells you a small vial of something yellowish, which smells like camphor and regret, just in case. He says, 1 drop on the tongue, not 2. 2 might kill you, probably. You thank him, even though you don't mean it, and tuck the vial into your pocket next to the rosemary sprig. Your protection kit is growing. You now carry a nosegay, a folded prayer, a sliver of garlic, and a pebble someone swore was blessed by a saint. It might also be from someone's garden. Hard to say. On the way back, you spot someone selling dead birds nailed to a plank. Supposedly they draw out the bad air. You pause. The birds are definitely dead, possibly from plague. You move on. There's another cough behind you. You don't look back. By evening, the city feels even more tense. The sunlight slants low, orange and angry. You light a stub of candle and sit by it, staring at the flame like it might tell you something. You hear a scream, distant but sharp, then silence, the kind of silence that follows something final. You lie down without eating. Hunger seems less important than survival. Your sheet is damp with sweat. You scratch again. Still nothing, still nothing. And you wonder, are you one of the lucky ones? Or just next you wake up to hammering. Not thunder, not hooves hammering. Short, deliberate thuds, echoing across the square like nails in a coffin lid. You don't need to look. You already know. Still, curiosity is a stubborn beast. You creep to the window and peek through a slat. There they are, 2 watchmen, broad-shouldered, in faded green jerkins and wide-brimmed hats. Their faces are wrapped in thick cloth, a look somewhere between a beekeeper and a ghost. One drives a nail into a doorpost. The other holds up the familiar red paint pot. A third man, gaunt and pale, stands nearby clutching a paper likely the quarantine order. His mouth moves, but you can't hear what he's saying. Maybe it's a prayer. Maybe it's just please. Inside that house, a family. Mother, father, and 2 boys. You've seen them in church. The youngest always sang too loudly. Now they'll be sealed in for 14 days. 14, if they're lucky. You remember what happens next. The watchman will deliver food if there's food to spare, and water, and maybe a priest. If you've got influence, most just pass the time in darkness, waiting to see who coughs first. The hammering stops. The cross is red and stark against the wood. Lord, have mercy upon us. You swallow. Your own door is unmarked. Your hands are clean visibly. Anyway, but it feels like everyone is only 3 steps from being nailed in. The watchmen turn and walk on. Their boots stir up dust, and no one on the street meets their eyes. The sound of the hammer fades behind them, but the memory lingers like a bad aftertaste. You head outside an hour later, when the air feels a little safer. People are trickling into the street again. Cautiously, you see neighbors talking from opposite windows. A woman lowers a basket of bread on a rope to someone below trade. Not charity. The plague has changed the shape of kindness. Now it comes with conditions and ropes. Down at the corner, a group has gathered near another newly sealed door. Not watching, mocking, you recognize one of them, Davies, the butcher's son. He's laughing too loudly, pointing at the door like it owes him money. They were already half dead. Anyway, he cackles. You know that kind of laugh, the kind that hides terror. You don't blame him. Exactly. But you also don't laugh. A watchman approaches the group, and they scatter like chickens. The watchmen don't speak much. They just look. That's enough. People move. Doors close. Historians still debate whether the watchmen were heroes or oppressors. Some say they saved thousands by enforcing quarantine. Others argue they were corrupt, sealing doors for bribes or out of petty spite. Truth probably lives somewhere between. One thing's certain, no one trusts them completely. You head toward the yard where the water carriers gather. There's a man selling fresh plague charms, mostly beads, bones, and scraps of scripture. He offers one to you, says it's from a bishop's sleeve. You pass. You've already got enough talismans to open a stall of your own. Nearby, a pair of children draw shapes in the dirt. You catch the faint rhyme they're chanting, ring a ring of rosemary, ashes for the eyes. Sneeze once, sneeze twice, then everybody dies. It's morbid, but that's childhood for you. Kids adapt to horror faster than adults do. You've seen some laugh while holding their dying sibling's hand. Maybe it's not ignorance, maybe it's instinct. A survival mechanism. You lean against a wall and watch for a bit. You see a man get turned away from a shop. He pleads, says he just needs flour. But the shopkeeper's eyes are narrow and wary. Your brother was coughing yesterday, she says. Don't lie. He doesn't lie. He just turns and walks away. You return home to find a small note slipped under your door. No name, just one word, careful. You stare at it for a long time, wondering who sent it and why. Are they warning you? Accusing you? Threatening? It's amazing how one word can be comforting and terrifying all at once. You sit by the window again, watching. Your city has become a place of watchers, everyone peering out, nobody stepping in. No one wants to be the one who gets too close. Even lovers exchange glances now instead of kisses. You heard of a couple who married at their doorway, one inside, one out. Said their vows with 6 feet and a pane of glass between them. That's romance now. That night, there's another hammering, but it's not from a watchman. It's from inside the house across the square. You hear it clearly scraping wood. something heavy thudding against the door from within. Someone's trying to get out. A woman's voice, hoarse and cracked, cries out in between. You can't make out the words, but the tone is unmistakable desperation. You don't move, neither does anyone else. You see flickers of candlelight in other windows, others are listening, just like you. But no one goes to help. After a while, it stops. No one talks about it the next day. It's as if the silence was the price of survival. You keep your distance. You don't linger near sealed doors. And at night, you sleep with one ear open, listening not for safety, but for warning. That's how it is now. Quarantine isn't just a condition, it's a sentence. Sometimes the door keeps the sickness in. Other times, it keeps the healthy out. You're never really sure which side you're on. By now, the exodus is well underway. You stand at the edge of Bishopsgate and watch them go. Those lucky enough to have options. Carriages loaded with sacks, crates, and pale children in bonnets rumble out of the city like ants fleeing a fire. Horses sweat and stumble under the weight. Drivers shout. Wheels snap in potholes, but nobody stops. You recognize a few faces among the crowd, your old tutor, the baker's widow, the man who once accused you of stealing turnips. Strange how grudges fade when the plague comes knocking. You nod at them as they pass, but no one nods back. Their eyes are fixed forward, on a future that might still be clean. One family clings to a wooden cross, lashed to their cart, their youngest wrapped in a blanket embroidered with tiny angels. A woman recites a psalm without pause, as if stopping might summon death. Her voice cracks, but she doesn't falter. You're not going anywhere, not because you don't want to, but because you can't. No horse, no cart, no country cousin with a spare room. Your escape plan consists of hiding in the back corner of your flat and trying not to breathe too loudly. Back inside the city walls, it's a different world entirely. Emptier now, more birds than people in the streets. You start to notice the silence more than the noise. No hawkers, no fiddlers, just the occasional shriek of a disturbed gull, and the shuffle of your own feet. The rich are gone. The poor remain, like driftwood after the tide pulls away. It's not just about money, it's about connections, influence, a way out. And you're not even sure where out is anymore. You overhear a conversation at the apothecary's door. Two women whispering about the Earl of Pembroke. Took his whole household. One says, left before the ink was dry on the first death bill. The other nods solemnly. Even the chamber pots. Left us with the rats. That's not a metaphor. The rats are bold now. You've seen them dash across bread stalls, climb wall cracks, vanish under floorboards. Some people blame them outright for the plague. Others say that's just a distraction. Historians still argue whether the rats, or more precisely, their fleas were the true carriers, or if the disease passed from person to person all along. But right now, you don't care who's right. You just don't want to see another tail slither under your bed. The mayor tries to keep order, or so you hear. You haven't seen him, obviously. He's in his mansion, surrounded by guards and vinegar pots. Instead, orders come through posted notices. One day it's do not gather in public. The next, it's do not attend theatre. The day after, do not question divine punishment. That one's underlined. The theatres are closed. The playhouses boarded. Even the puppet shows have vanished. London is turning inward. curling up like a sick animal licking its wounds. And yet, not everyone is afraid. You pass a group of apprentices lounging on the church steps. One is carving initials into the stone with a knife. Another blows smoke rings with his pipe. "If I die," he says, "I'll haunt that bastard of a master who still owes me a crown." They laugh, a little too hard, a little too long. Fear has funny flavors. Some drink, some joke, some paint their faces white and walk the streets as skeletons, mocking death itself, its gallows humor. But it beats screaming. Later, you visit your friend Marcy. She lives 3 doors down, alone now. Her husband died a week ago, fever and black swellings under both arms. She never cried, not once. Now, she boils her sheets daily and sleeps on the floor. You bring her a loaf of bread. She takes it with shaking hands. You sit outside her door while she talks, separated by 1 plank and 6 inches of air. "I keep waiting to cough," she says. "Sometimes I pretend I already did. Makes it easier." You nod. She chuckles. "You know what I miss most?" she asks. "Pudding." You both laugh. You have no idea why. On the way home, you see more signs of abandonment. Shops shuttered, dogs lying where their owners left them, empty baskets swinging in the wind. You hear footsteps once and freeze, but it's only a child, barefoot and silent, dragging a wooden horse with 1 missing wheel. You want to ask where her parents are, but you don't. That night, you sit by the window again. It's quieter than usual. Even the rats seem to have taken a night off. You look at the stars, too bright for a sky with this much death beneath it. You think about the people leaving, about the ones who couldn't. You imagine what the road out of London smells like. Grass, horse sweat, dust. The countryside must be cleaner, must be better. But you're not there. You're here. With the watchers, the coffers, the locked in, the brave, the stubborn, the unlucky, and the forgotten. You wonder which one you are. You haven't had a proper meal in days. Not that you're starving, more like perpetually unsatisfied. Every bite is a quiet disappointment. Bread that's gone to brick. Carrots that snap like dry twigs. Cheese with suspicious patterns you try not to investigate too closely. Still, you head to the market square, not because it's pleasant, nothing about it is, but because you must. Everyone must. It's one of the few remaining pulses in a city that's otherwise stopped breathing. And it's a spectacle, a strange theater where survival, suspicion, and haggling play out under the faint scent of sweat and sage. You reach it just after sunrise. Early is best, before the crowd thickens and before the fear does. The stalls are fewer now, maybe a third of what they used to be. The rest are shuttered, abandoned, or draped in black cloth. You don't ask why. A fishmonger leans lazily against a cart, flapping 1 sad-looking mackerel. Caught fresh, he lies. It stinks of 3-day-old ambition. Still, someone buys it. You drift past a woman selling jars of cloudy liquid labeled Plague Tonic certified holy. You ask her what's in it. She smiles and says, "Don't worry. It tastes worse than it smells." That isn't comforting. You keep walking. You spot a man with a table covered in powders, herbs, and dried beetles. "Apothecary supplies," he says. "Protection bundles, charms." His hair is wild, his eyes wilder. You buy a small cloth pouch anyway, rosemary, mint, and something that might be grave dirt. He tells you to hang it in your chimney. You don't have a chimney. You thank him anyway. And then there's the bread lady. She's your favorite. Not because her bread is good, it's barely edible, but because she still makes jokes. She wraps your loaf and winks. If the plague don't get you, she says, my sourdough will. You laugh, and for one fleeting second, you forget. You pass a man handing out flyers warning about plague seeds hidden in imported figs. He waves one in your face. It's the fruit, he insists. Foreign devil fruit. You sidestep him. You still have dried figs at home. You plan to eat them, eventually. The market is strange like that, part lifeline, part madhouse. 1 minute you're selecting onions, the next you're avoiding a man yelling about God's judgment and waving a flaming torch. He's promptly doused by 2 milkmaids with a bucket of rainwater. Good aim too. A band of children dart between the stalls, clutching copper coins and gossip. They trade stories like currency. Old Lady Merton's whole family vanished. A chimney sweep's ghost walks the river. If you sneeze 3 times, you're dead by dawn. You wonder how many of those are true. Historians still argue whether markets like these helped or hurt the city's survival. On one hand, they spread vital supplies. On the other, they were petri dishes for plague. But you don't have the luxury of theory. You just need carrots. Suddenly, a loud cough splits the crowd. Everyone freezes. It's a man near the cabbage stall, doubled over, red-faced. He waves his hands, wheezing. Just choked on a seed, I swear it. No one moves. One woman drops her basket. Someone screams. The man stumbles away, furious and humiliated. You realize your own throat feels dry. You swallow 3 times in a row, just to prove a point to whom. You're not sure. The crowd begins to thin. The tension remains. You wrap your scarf tighter, even though the air is stifling. You check your list more out of habit than purpose. Bread, carrots, vinegar, salt, and luxury of luxuries if you're lucky. A bit of dried plum. You hear a preacher at the edge of the square yelling from atop a barrel, "The righteous shall be spared, but the sinners." He's interrupted by a flying turnip. You don't see who threw it. By midday, you're heading home with a basket that's both heavier and lighter than you'd like. Heavy with roots and bark, light on anything you'd actually enjoy eating. You pass a tavern that used to overflow with laughter. Now it has a single sign closed. Condemned. Someone has scrawled underneath, same difference. Back at your doorstep, you pause. Check your reflection in the window pane. Pale, slightly sunken-eyed, but upright, still standing. You duck inside and set your things down. The house smells of vinegar, wax, and something vaguely herbal. You realize you've begun to enjoy the scent of rosemary, not because it's pleasant, but because it feels like armor. You slice the bread. It crumbles like gravel. You eat it anyway. You chew slowly, listening for sounds, bells, boots, cries. In the distance, you hear singing. A high, wavering voice. A hymn, maybe. Or someone's cracked lullaby. The sound carries through the alleys like smoke. You stand by the window, biting into a carrot that tastes like the inside of an old boot, and wonder what tomorrow's market will look like. If there will be a market at all. If you'll be in it. You see him from a distance first, this strange, bird-like figure gliding between alleys like something out of a play. At first, you think he's a joke. a carnival actor who got lost on the way to a pageant. But then you remember there are no pageants anymore. No mummers, no jesters, no parades or puppet shows. What you're seeing is real. It's a plague doctor. You duck behind a cart and peer out. His silhouette is unmistakable: long black coat, leather gloves, wide-brimmed hat, and that mask, the beaked one, curved like a raven's, shiny and alien. 2 glass eye holes reflect the dim light like tiny moons. He turns his head slowly, surveying the street. You've heard stories, of course, that the mask is stuffed with herbs, rose petals, lavender, mint to protect him from miasma, that the bird shape wards off evil, that no one's seen a plague doctor without the mask and lived to tell about it. You know the official reason, though it's to keep him from inhaling the bad air. Miasma, the invisible fog of disease. Historians still argue whether miasma theory saved lives or made everything worse. But the doctor, he walks as if he believes it with his whole soul. You stay hidden, not because you're afraid of him, but of what he signifies. His presence means someone nearby is sick, maybe dying, maybe already dead. He stops at a door not far from you, knocks 3 times, waits. No answer. He knocks again. This time, someone unlatches the door from the inside. A crack opens. He leans in, says something. The door shuts. He doesn't enter. He pulls a parchment from his satchel and nails it to the frame. Then he scribbles something in a leather-bound ledger, turns, and walks away. You wait until he's gone before approaching. The parchment reads, "Plague suspected, isolation ordered." You back away slowly. That evening, you see another one, different build, slightly taller. This one carries a long stick, which he uses to prod at things on the ground. He doesn't speak, just walks. The stick scrapes over cobblestones with an eerie rhythm scratch. Tap, scratch. Some say the stick's to examine patients without touching them. Others say it's to ward off spirits. You're not sure which scares you more. Children mimic the doctors sometimes. You saw a boy wearing a homemade beak mask fashioned from paper and twine. He marched up and down his street until his mother slapped it off his face, said it was bad luck. Maybe it was. The next day, their windows were shuttered. Later, you ask around. Old Mr. Jenkins says the doctors are just for show. They don't cure anything, he mutters, stuffing tobacco into a cracked pipe. Just write lists of names and hand out dried sage. Could have done that myself. But you've heard other tales, quiet, whispered ones, that some doctors carry secret tinctures, that they know the signs early, that they slip coins to gravediggers to keep things quiet. You saw one lean over a child last week, held the boy's wrist, whispered something, left a small pouch behind. Maybe medicine, maybe last rites. No one knows. And there's that lingering thought who pays them, the city, apparently. But city coffers are as sick as its streets. Some say they're paid in land, others in promises. Some just do it out of duty or madness. Historians still debate the effectiveness of plague doctors. Some believe they were civil servants keeping chaos in check. Others claim they were scapegoats, symbols of false hope sent to pacify the masses. You suspect both are true. You catch sight of another one 2 days later, this time in the fog. Just a shape, really, like a bird-headed spectre, gliding past the tavern that used to serve goose pie and cheap ale. He pauses, looks right at you. At least, you think he does. hard to tell behind those glass eyes. Your breath catches. You nod, polite and quick. He nods back, and then he's gone, vanishing into the mist like he was never real to begin with. Later that night, you dream of birds, hundreds of them, circling overhead, all wearing hats. One lands on your shoulder and says, "You're next." You wake up sweating, and then you scratch your neck. No lump, still. You lie awake for a long time, listening for the scrape of a stick on stone, wondering which doctor will knock next, and whether he'll be wearing your name in his little leather book. The bell rings again, low and heavy. You hear it long before you see the cart. That dull, mournful clang, like the city itself is sighing. It bounces off the stone walls and seeps under your door, into your bones. You open the window slowly. There it is, the dead cart, drawn by a skeletal horse, driven by a man with a voice like gravel and eyes like the bottom of a rain barrel. He calls out in rhythm with the bell, "Bring out your dead." Pause. Bring out your dead. The wheels creak and lurch as the cart rolls over the uneven cobblestones. Flies buzz behind it. A slow, loyal procession. You've never actually seen someone add a body to the cart before. But today, you do. Halfway down your street, a woman opens her door. No tears, no drama, just resignation. She drags a bundled figure by the arms, a man, limp, wrapped in a tattered sheet. The driver says nothing. He jumps down, lifts the body in one practiced motion, and heaves it onto the pile. The woman closes her door. That's it. No prayer, no blessing, not even a name. You watch the cart roll on, past your window, past your neighbors, past the bakery that hasn't baked in weeks. You recognize a shoe sticking out of the pile green leather. Fancy. Probably from a merchant, or someone who used to be one. The cart heads towards the edge of the city. You've heard that's where the mass graves are, now deep pits dug quickly, filled even quicker. Some say they bury 5 dozen a day. Others say it's closer to 100. You never want to find out. Later, you follow from a distance, not too close, just enough to see where it goes. Past the shops, past the inn, past the church with boarded up windows. The groan of shovels greets you before the sight does. And when you see it, your breath catches. A long trench, maybe 20 feet across, maybe deeper. It's hard to tell. The sides are crumbling clay, damp from last night's rain. The pit is half full already. Some are wrapped in sheets, some not. One child still clutches a rag doll. Grave diggers work with a sort of detached rhythm dig. Toss, flatten, step back. They wear loose scarves over their faces and smear vinegar under their noses. One has painted a smiley face on his scarf. You can't decide if that's brave or insane. A man with a ledger stands nearby, calling names. No one answers. He ticks them off anyway. One of the diggers stops and wipes his brow. He catches your eye and nods like he knows you, or maybe just recognizes you as another still breathing shape. You nod back. He waves his shovel vaguely and says, "We'll be digging more tonight, always more." Then he gets back to work. Historians still argue whether these pits were necessary or whether a more careful burial could have slowed the spread. But looking at the numbers, looking at this, you're not sure anything could have kept up. You sit for a while on a rock, just outside the trench, watching. You don't know why. Maybe guilt, maybe morbid curiosity, maybe just because this is what London is now. and pretending otherwise feels dishonest. Then someone starts singing, a low, shaky voice. It's one of the diggers, an old man, back bent, hair gone to silver. Abide with me, fast falls the eventide. One by one, the others join in. It's not in harmony, it's not even in tune, but it is human, and it echoes across the pit like a thread stretched between life and death. You find yourself humming along before you realize. Then you stand, brush the dust from your coat, and leave. On the way back, you see another cart headed toward the pits, this one smaller, pulled by hand. Two boys guiding it, solemn and barefooted. The cart holds one bundle, wrapped in clean linen, tied neatly with twine. Someone cared. You step aside as they pass. One boy nods, the other stares ahead, jaw clenched, eyes red. Neither says a word. You return home with a new heaviness. You light a candle, not for anyone specific, just for the city, for all of it. That night, you dream of bells and shovels and the soft thump of earth, and when you wake, you lie still for a long time, just listening. The smell hits you before the street does. Not rot, though, that's there too, but everything else. Burnt rosemary, clove smoke, vinegar-soaked rags, old meat, crushed flowers, human breath behind cloth. It's as if the entire city has decided that if it can't be clean, it can at least be aggressively not plague-scented. You tie a sprig of lavender to your collar, as instructed by the baker's wife. Lavender keeps the death away, she told you with the firm confidence of someone who'd read it on a tavern wall. You didn't argue. You pass a house with 5 torches blazing at the doorstep. Another has wreaths of garlic hanging from every window. The air tastes like a confused stew of medieval kitchen waste and expired perfume. Honestly, it's an improvement. A child runs past, waving a bundle of sage that leaves a smoky trail in her wake. She's laughing. You can't tell if she's playing or purifying. Down the street, a man in a patched waistcoat flings a pan of burning herbs onto the ground in front of his house and chants something that sounds suspiciously made up. Begone, foul humours, begone. He tosses a handful of salt over his shoulder for good measure. You step widely around him, just in case. You've started sleeping with a vinegar rag over your mouth. It smells like salad and gives you odd dreams. But you do it anyway. Everyone has a method now. Some stuff their pockets with pomanders, scented balls made of crushed spices. Others dangle wax tablets near their noses. One woman you know wears a string of dried lemons like a necklace. The whole city smells like it's trying to make itself into a giant sachet. You pass an open window and catch a whiff of something sharp and herbal. Inside, a man hovers over a steaming pot, dropping in what looks like onions, bay leaves. And was that a chicken foot? You blink. He looks up, smiles grimly, and mouths, protection. Sure, why not? Historians still debate how much these protective smells really helped. Some argue they at least encouraged better hygiene. Others say they offered nothing but false hope. But you don't care. You'd carry a barrel of time on your back if someone told you it worked. You remember what the physician said. The plague rides on foul air. So the thinking goes, if you surround yourself with good air, the bad can't get in. Of course, nobody can agree on what good air actually is. You try not to think about that too hard. In the market square, someone's selling bundles of dried hyssop wrapped in ribbons. Another has tiny vials of rose water priced like gold, guaranteed to purify your lungs. The seller proclaims, "You buy one, take a sniff. It smells like hope, diluted in a bucket of soap." Some households go further. You pass one with burning tar in a pan just inside the doorway. The smell is awful, but the owner beams with pride. Not a single cough in a week, she boasts. You nod and try to look impressed, even as your eyes water. People also carry charms now, scraps of parchment with psalms, or strange runes drawn in red ink. You saw a man yesterday rubbing a piece of iron across his chest and whispering something that sounded like a recipe. When you asked what it was, he said it was plague deterrence. You didn't press. One friend swears by burning feathers. Another insists on sitting in smoke for an hour a day. You tried it once. Coughed so hard you scared your neighbor. But afterward, you did feel different. Light-headed, at least. You're beginning to think that's the point. All of this, the smoke, the herbs, the charms, it's less about curing and more about doing. If you're mixing sage and stuffing roses in your sleeves, you don't feel helpless. And feeling not helpless is a form of medicine. In a small alley, you come across a woman standing very still, arms outstretched. She's surrounded by 4 bowls, each filled with a different scent. One with mint, one with cloves, one with lemon peel, and one that smells like regret. She opens her eyes and says softly, "You must balance the humors, or the spirits get restless." You nod, because it seems rude not to. As night falls, the city begins to smolder, not from fires of destruction, but from 1,000 tiny attempts at healing. Chimneys puff out rosemary smoke. Streets glow with the flicker of scented torches. Alleyways waft with clove and old prayers. It's oddly beautiful. You lie in bed with your vinegar cloth and your pouch of herbs and your feet pointed toward the window. Someone said it helps the airflow. You light a candle and set it near a bundle of sage, just for good measure. Outside, you hear soft footsteps and a woman humming a hymn as she sprinkles salt on every doorstep. She does this nightly. You don't know her name, but you hope she keeps doing it. You wake up to numbers. They're posted at the corner of Bread Street, tacked to a wooden board with rusted nails and streaks of dried rain, neatly written in black ink. The page is titled simply, "Bill of Mortality." It reads like a shopping list made by a ghost. Each parish is listed alongside a number, not of births, not of weddings, just deaths. Saint, Sepulchres 121, Sant, Giles 198, Saint, Andrews 87, Plague 602, other causes 147. You stare at it. 6,000 in 1 week. You do the math not because you want to, but because your brain starts doing it anyway. That's nearly 1,000 a day, 40 an hour, 1 every minute and a half. By the time you finish reading, someone else has died. The bills are updated weekly, delivered by clerks, transcribed by overworked recorders, and distributed like bread rations to a city starving for information. They're supposed to help you track the sickness, know where it's worst, where it's spreading, where to avoid. But you don't avoid anything. You live in it. You see a cluster of neighbors gathered around the bill. No one speaks. One woman just stares at the numbers for St. Dunstan's and then slowly walks away. That was her parish. You guess she's counting family. Someone mutters. They say St. brides is faking their numbers. Makes them look better. Someone else replies, nah, their priest just died. Left the list half filled. Historians still debate the accuracy of the bills of mortality. Some say they were inflated, padded with assumptions. Others think they underreported, especially in poorer areas where no one had time or means to register a death. One thing's certain, the paper always runs out of space before the plague does. You watch as a city official nails another bill to the board. This one lists other causes: fever, flux, teeth, lunacy, worms, grief. One line reads simply, fright. You believe it. You start seeing the bills everywhere on church doors, nailed to trees, folded into cracks between stones. They become part of the scenery, like chimney smoke or the flies. You barely react anymore, except when you see your street. This week, 22, you do a quick mental roll call. You're not sure who's gone, but someone has. Maybe the lamplighter, maybe the family above the Coopers. You saw their windows closed 3 days in a row. You go home and sit with the number 22. You imagine lining up 22 chairs in your room. Imagine filling them, then removing them. That's what the bill really is. A list of vanished chairs. At night, you dream of ledgers, endless pages, names written, names crossed out. You dream of a hand holding a quill that never stops moving. The next day, a boy runs down the street with a fresh bill, waving it like a banner. It's worse, he shouts. It's even worse you don't chase him. You just nod grimly. Of course it is. You start collecting the bills, folding them carefully, slipping them between pages of an old prayer book. You tell yourself it's for record keeping, but it's more than that. It's a ritual, because these numbers are the only proof some people ever existed. You remember your aunt, years ago, always lighting a candle at church for the uncounted. She meant sinners. Now, you wonder if she meant people like these, the ones whose names are reduced to ink and totals. You try not to look at the total at the bottom. But today you do. Total deaths this week. 703. You read it once, twice, then slowly walk home. Your breath shallow. That night, you light a candle, not for someone specific, just for the number. You try to write a letter. Your cousin Thomas lives in the North Derbyshire. Maybe you're not even sure anymore, but it's far enough, far from the death tolls, from the red crosses, from the silence that's begun to fill even your dreams. You dip your quill in the ink and begin Dear Thomas. And then you stop. What can you even say? Hope you're well. London's mostly on fire. The air smells like old shoes and burnt time. I haven't seen a healthy baby in weeks. You settle on I am still alive. That feels honest enough. You tell him about the bills of mortality. The bread that now tastes like damp slate. The sound of the watchman's hammer. You mention Marcy. How she boiled her husband's shoes for broth and somehow kept her humor. You write about the birds, the real ones, and the plague doctors, and how sometimes you confuse them. Then you fold the letter, seal it with wax, tie it up with twine, and think, now what? The postal service, such as it was, is a crumbling wreck. Couriers refuse to enter the city. Even the desperate ones have stopped coming. You heard of a boy who tried to deliver a letter to Oxford. He made it 3 miles before someone threw a rock at his head and told him to turn around. You walk to the edge of your street and ask the local errand runner, A man named Rufus. If he's heading north soon, he laughs like you asked him to carry it to the moon. Nobody's going north, he says. Nobody's going anywhere, except the grave. Fair. You try slipping it to a passing merchant. He recoils as if you've handed him a flaming skull. I don't touch plague paper, he mutters. Burn it. So now your letter sits on the mantle, gathering dust, like hope in envelope form. You try to write another, this one to your sister in Dover. It's shorter. Tell the children I think of them. I hope they still sing. You can't even deliver that. Instead, you spend your evenings writing letters you'll never send. They pile up on your desk, words strung together like little life rafts. Some are to the dead, some are to the living. One is just a list of names you don't want to forget. You start carrying a note in your coat pocket with your name, your address, and a line that says, "If I die, let someone know I was here." Historians still debate how many people simply vanished during the plague unburied, uncounted, unnamed. Some families left no trace, entire households gone, as if they'd been blown away by the wind. And that's what the letters are about, really. Not communication, just evidence. I existed. I thought things. I missed you. You remember the printer who once sold love letters at the market, blank templates with flowery beginnings like, "My heart burns only for thee. You bought one once, as a joke. You still have it. It's less funny now." Marcy starts writing, too. You find her one day on her doorstep with a stack of papers, folding each with care. To whom you ask? She shrugs. No one. God. The sky. Doesn't matter. Just feels good to remember how. You sit beside her and write one more. Dear world. We are still trying. Later that week, a boy named Ellis comes by your alley. He's maybe 11, all elbows and dust. He offers to deliver letters for a price, 1 apple, or 3 onions. You give him both. He tucks the letters into a pouch slung across his chest like a holy relic and promises to leave them at the northern gate. Maybe the wind will take him the rest of the way, he says. You smile, though it aches to do so. Maybe it will. That night, you light another candle. You watch the wax melt and imagine your words drifting on the breeze, slipping past the sickness, curling through valleys, reaching someone, anyone who might remember your name. Just once, just long enough. You hear the scratching before you see the culprit, low and rhythmic, like someone dragging a spoon across slate. You pause, bread knife in hand, and tilt your head. It's coming from the base of the wall. Then, with a flick of a tail and a flash of fur, it scurries into view. Rat, small, fast, bold. It stops just under your stool, sniffs the air with cartoonish drama, then darts back into the shadows like it forgot its shopping list. You should be used to them by now, but you never are. The rats are everywhere, thick as chimney soot and twice as stubborn. They skitter across windowsills, scratch through floorboards, and chew into flour sacks like they own the place, which, honestly, they might. You certainly don't feel in charge. You set the knife down. You've heard the rumors that rats cause the plague, that their fleas are the true villains, that every time you hear a scuttle in the dark, death is laughing just out of reach. But not everyone agrees. Some say it's the cats filthy, roving beasts with soulless eyes and a fondness for sleeping on the corpses of the sick. One preacher claimed cats were Satan's familiars, sent to punish London's sins. Another claimed they were divine guardians, punishing sinners by not helping. Historians still argue whether the mass killing of cats in the early days of the plague worsened the infestation. The logic was fewer cats, fewer devils, but also, unfortunately, more rats. You're not sure what to believe. Your neighbor, Mrs. Lyle, has started feeding every cat she can find. She tosses fish guts onto her doorstep every morning and names them all after Saint Francis, Saint Mary, Saint Gertrude III. Her husband left her 2 weeks ago, possibly because of the cats. One night, you find her burying a small grey one under a crooked pear tree. She doesn't cry. She just whispers, "Good luck, little soul," and tucks a marigold next to its paw. The next morning, she hangs a charm on her door, a wooden carving of a cat sitting on a skull. You compliment it. She says she carved it herself, out of the leg of an old stool. The stool was cursed anyway. You don't ask for details. Others, meanwhile, have taken the opposite approach, across town. Someone's nailed a sign to a tree reading, "Cull the filth. No more rats. No more cats." Below that, a basket full of mouse traps, and a handwritten note offering a penny for every tale delivered. You see a boy later that day walking through the square with a string of rat tails tied to his belt like grim trophies. He's whistling. You don't ask the tune. Then there are the blamers, the ones who say the plague isn't rats or cats, or even fleas, but people, foreigners, strangers, women with unusual herbs. One man on your street accused a midwife of conjuring the sickness through womb magic. She hit him with a broom. No one's seen him since. The scapegoating is loud and contagious. Someone chalked unclean on your friend Elias's door last week. No proof, just a hunch. The landlord painted over it, but the word lingers like mold on the tongue. You try not to let paranoia bloom in your own mind. But then, your flour is half-eaten, your water jug has teeth marks, and something has been scratching in the attic for 4 nights straight. You go up with the lantern, you find a rat's nest in the old hat box, shredded papers, bits of wool, and a single button from a coat you haven't worn in years. The rats are gone, but the smell lingers. You burn the box. You stand by the fire a long time, watching it collapse in on itself. You whisper a small apology to the hat, the coat, the rats. You're not sure which one needs it most. That night, you dream of rats with golden crowns and robes. They sit on tiny thrones and judge you silently. When you wake, your neighbor is shouting. Another cat's been killed, poisoned, she thinks. Someone left a pie in the alley. No one ate it. Not twice. She drags the little body into the garden and curses the world in 4 languages. You nod in sympathy. Then go inside and bolt your windows, just in case the next rumor is about you. You begin the day with a toad, specifically the toad tied to your wrist in a little linen pouch. It was Marcy's idea. To draw the poison, she said, nodding like it was just common sense, like wearing amphibians was a long-lost art of high society. They suck the illness through the skin, little plague magnets. You laughed. Then you tied one on, and now you sit at your table, watching the lump in the cloth pouch twitch. Is it working? Difficult to say. You chew your bread, which tastes like disapproval, and leaf through your growing pile of remedies. Each one claims to know exactly how to stop the plague in its tracks. Drink powdered unicorn horn, tie a dead mole around your neck, boil a red rose and drink the water by moonlight. Avoid sleeping facing west. Rub a cut onion on your feet every morning. Avoid loud noises and irritating people that one you like. Today's prize is a new pamphlet poorly printed, mostly smudges and bold promises. It suggests swallowing crushed emerald mixed with butter expels the corruption from the spleen. It says, "You don't have emeralds, you do have butter. Close enough." You set the idea aside and visit the apothecary instead. His shop is half stock, half miracle. You browse shelves lined with dried bats, vials of cloudy powder, and several very confident labels. Guaranteed cure, tried by clergymen, used by Dutch kings. He offers you a small brown bottle, boiled quince and tobacco ash, and says, infused with holy words. Which words? He shrugs. The usual ones, you pay anyway. Historians still argue whether any of these so-called remedies had even the smallest effect. Most agree they were useless. Some suggest the occasional herbal concoction might have soothed symptoms, or even helped fight infection. But for the average Londoner, it was mostly a blend of wishful thinking and aromatic chaos. Still, better than doing nothing. Back at home, you light a candle and smear wax on your door frame. For protection, possibly from the plague, possibly from your own nerves. Then you try a warm compress of wormwood and vinegar. It smells like a spoiled soup and gives you a headache. Progress. Marcy swings by with a jar of something thick and green. Sage, honey, and hope, she says proudly. You spread it on your wrists like perfume. You sit outside and watch a man try to treat his son by wrapping his chest in cabbage leaves. Draws the heat out. He tells his wife. She nods like she's memorizing every wrinkle of the leaves. You hope it works. The next house over is boiling an entire pot of nettles. You don't ask why. Your landlord, whose grasp of medicine changes with the weather, has started fasting every third day to purify his organs. He also insists on walking backward through doorways to confuse the disease. You catch him doing it, nearly tripping over the cat. The baker next door claims drinking ink keeps the blood thin, and the blood must be thin. She offers you a thimble's worth. You decline, mostly because it smells like regret. The mayor has issued a new list of approved cures, distributed via leaflets. Most are just Latin phrases with some herbs thrown in for flair. One recipe is simply boil garlic, chant psalms, pray sincerely. You try 2 out of 3. You visit a healer with a small stand near the church. He offers to examine your palms and your teeth. Then he says the plague is in your wind, not your blood. He prescribes leeches and laughter. You accept the leeches. Laughter, you're working on. That night, you slice open an old lemon and hang the halves by your bed. You sleep facing east, wearing rosemary in your socks, and a small note pinned to your shirt that says not yet, thank you. Your dreams are strange and citrusy. In one, you see a long table where every Londoner sits, drinking tonics and chewing herbs, while a skeletal figure takes notes. The skeleton looks up, shrugs, and walks away. Everyone cheers. You wake up smiling, still breathing, still carrying the toad, who, to his credit, has not died yet. There's laughter in the square. Actual unfiltered laughter, sharp and shocking in a way that makes you stop mid-step. For a moment, you think you've imagined it. Maybe it was birds. Maybe your brain finally cracked and decided it wanted to remember happiness. But no, it's real. You follow the sound, weaving through alleyways that smell like ash and nettle until you reach the edge of the market. There, in the middle of it all, someone's putting on a puppet show. Not a full crowd, just a knot of people, maybe a dozen, all standing a cautious distance from one another, masked and scarfed, with wary eyes above their wrappings. But their attention is fixed on a rickety wooden stage, no taller than a barrel, and the little glove puppets dancing atop it. One is Death Tall Hat, long robe, a painted-on scowl. The other is London, a red-cheeked puppet with a crooked grin, holding a pint of invisible ale. They argue about taxes, then they argue about funerals. Then Death tries to steal London's sausages. You almost choke on a laugh. The puppeteer, a young man with wild eyes and the energy of someone who's already survived more than he planned for, speaks in 3 voices, none of which sound like his own. He changes accents mid-line. He juggles sausages. He throws in a joke about fleas that makes one of the older women double over. For a moment, just a moment, you forget the sickness. Then someone coughs, and everyone steps back. The puppeteer doesn't miss a beat. "Ah," he shouts in Death's voice, "a good cough keeps me in business." Laughter ripples again, hesitant but real. You find a place on a nearby crate and watch the rest of the performance. A baby cries. A cart rattles by, but no one moves. It's like London is holding its breath, just to have this moment. Afterward, someone passes around a tin for coins. You toss in 2 pence, which is more than you gave the apothecary last week. The puppeteer bows, maskless now, sweat beading on his brow. He looks exhausted. "Do you do this often?" you ask. "Only when I'm bored of weeping," he replies, with a wink. Historians still wonder how much public entertainment continued during the plague. Officially, all theatres were closed. Public gatherings were banned. But unofficially, humans don't give up joy so easily. There are records of secret puppet shows, backroom fiddlers, and rooftop singers. They weren't just distractions, they were rebellion, in miniature. That night, you hear music, you're half asleep, drifting, and then it floats through the window like a memory, a lute, or maybe a rebec, playing something slow and spiraling. You rise, pad barefoot to the sill, and listen. It's coming from across the street. A widow. Maybe. You've seen her with the instrument before, tuning it with the same care others give to herbs and locks. She plays another tune, one you recognize from your childhood. You hum along quietly. So do the pigeons. You leave a sprig of rosemary on her doorstep in the morning. The next day, you find a scrap of parchment slipped into your window frame. It reads, "We're meeting at dusk rooftop of the old printer's shop. Just music, just voices, just for a little while. You go." The climb is awkward slanted ladders, a near fall onto a very judgmental goose, but you make it. There are 5 others there already, scattered across the flat stones like chess pieces. No one sits too close. A fire burns low in a clay pot. There's cider passed around in a tin mug, wiped with cloth between sips. Then someone begins to sing. No stage, no instruments, just a voice rich and raw, echoing off chimney stacks. It's an old ballad about a sailor who falls in love with a ghost. You know the chorus. Everyone does. You join in, your voice scratchy but honest. Another person sings next, then another. You offer a story instead, a joke about a goat, a shoemaker, and a bucket of vinegar. It makes Marcy laugh so hard she chokes on her cider. You stay until the moon climbs high. You watch the rooftops shimmer in silver and shadow. You listen to people being alive. You don't remember the last time you felt that. The next day, someone draws a smiley face on the side of a cart. Another paints a yellow sun on a shuttered shop. You add a chalk heart to a lamppost. It's not resistance. It's a reminder that even in a city sick with fear, there is still a heartbeat, still a lute string vibrating, still a puppet stealing sausages from death. You smell the fire before you see the flames, not the accidental kind, no startled screams or buckets flying, no overturned candle setting curtains alight. This fire is deliberate, controlled, setting neat piles along the street, like some kind of strange ritual. You step outside and see them little bonfires arranged every few houses, thick with oily smoke. Your neighbor, old Jacob, is lighting one just outside his stoop, poking it with an iron rod, like he's conducting an orchestra of ash. Clearing the air, he says without looking up. Smoke drives it out, cleans everything. You've heard the theory before that fire purifies the air, chokes the plague out of alleys and lungs. A cloud of burning sage and straw is London's answer to the invisible enemy. If you can't see it, smother it. You nod and join him, tossing in a handful of dried rosemary. It sizzles like old secrets. The smoke curls upward, thick and sharp, stinging your eyes even as it comforts your fear. Along the lane, more fires start. One man is burning his wife's mattress. Another throws in a pile of old rags soaked in vinegar. A child drops a paper drawing of a rat into the flames and whispers, "Go away." You hope the plague is listening. The city begins to resemble a battlefield, smoke drifting through streets like wounded soldiers, ash settling on windowsills and rooftops like grey snow. The smell is everywhere, charred herbs, burning cloth, the occasional hint of something meatier you choose not to investigate, even indoors. The smoke creeps in. You wet a cloth and hang it over the window. The breeze turns acrid, but at least it's not still. Marcy knocks on your door with a torch in hand. "We're setting one in the alley," she says. "Bring anything you don't mind losing." You look around. What don't you mind losing? You bring a broken chair leg, a stack of old pamphlets that never did much good, and a pair of shoes with the soles worn thin. You hesitate, then toss in your last bottle of plague tonic, the one that tasted like wet chalk. The fire pops and snaps. Someone claps. It almost feels like a festival. Almost. Later, a man with a thick mustache paces the square, shouting, "Make fire, make smoke, burn the devil out." He's got a sack of kindling slung over his shoulder and a glint in his eye that says he'll burn more than wood if asked. Historians still question how effective the smoke purges really were. Some think they helped with the fleas choking them out, maybe reducing transmission. Others say it was all symbolic, a desperate effort to control something unseeable. A few suggest it only worsened the city's already filthy air. But then again, who's measuring fresh air during an apocalypse? By dusk, the city glows with firelight. The usual lantern flickers are joined by orange bonfires and burning barrels. The rooftops shimmer with heat haze. You can't see the stars tonight, only the smoke and the color of flame reflected in window panes. You sit by your own fire, legs stretched out, eyes half closed. Someone plays a tin whistle nearby. The tune is uneven, but haunting. A lullaby for the ash. A woman across the way is chanting. Not words, you know, something older, stranger. Her face is painted with soot. She tosses a bundle of herbs into her fire and closes her eyes. You don't ask questions. You just watch your own flames lick at the edges of your fears. Someone brings bread. Another brings broth. You pass a jug of cider. For the first time in weeks, people are sitting in the same place at the same time, even if it's 6 feet apart and masked in shadow. The fire doesn't just cleanse, it gathers. Later, as you pour a final ladle of broth into the flames for the dead, just in case they're hungry, someone mutters, you think about all the other fires burning across the city. Dozens, hundreds, each one holding a different family's hope, or grief, or leftover laundry. You wonder if the plague fears fire, if it sees the smoke and flees, if it dreams, as you do, of a city that smells like something other than sorrow. When the last flame dies and only embers remain, you press your hand to the ground. It's warm, alive. For now, you find yourself in a pub, sort of. Not one of the proper ones. Not anymore. The real taverns are shuttered. Doors locked tight with notices that say closed until further ordinance, which is legal speak for everyone inside died, and the beer's probably haunted, but the red mare's hoof well. It's not open. It's just not closed, either. Someone props the door halfway, sets up 2 barrels as seats, and passes out mugs of whatever liquid remains in the casks. It might be beer, might be vinegar. It's hard to tell in the dark. No one complains. This is where you meet Bartholomew the gravedigger. He's huge, shoulders like firewood stacks, fingers stained with permanent dirt, and a voice like gravel in a wet sack. He nurses a cup and talks like someone who's seen too much and decided to laugh anyway. 17 today. He grunts between sips. Would have been 18, but one rolled back down the hill. There's a beat of silence. Then everyone laughs. Because what else can you do? You edge closer. Not out of fascination, exactly, but because people who work with the dead tend to be honest in a way others aren't. They don't waste time on niceties. There's no room for that between pits. You ask him what it's like. He raises one eyebrow. What's what? Like the digging or the dying, both? He shrugs. Digging's easy. Dying's heavier. You ask how he manages. I drink, he says plainly, and I tell stories. Keeps the ghosts polite. Another gravedigger across the barrel raises his mug. To polite ghosts everyone drinks. The stories begin. Not rehearsed ones, just unspooled. Like thread unraveling in the dark. Had a gent last week. Real fancy lace collar. Gold rings. His dog wouldn't leave the body. Had to bury them both together. Buried a girl holding a rag doll. Eyes open the whole time. Like she was watching me. Once I found 3 brothers in one house. No one left to close their eyes. So I did it. They say it casually. Not cruelly, just bluntly. Like builders discussing bricks. Then Bartholomew leans forward. Want to know the worst. Everyone leans in, even the shadows. It's the living ones, he says. Sometimes you hear them. From under the boards. People who were too still. Thrown in too early. A few gasps. One person nearly drops their mug. You lie, someone says. Bartholomew just shrugs. Sometimes, aye, but not about that. Historians still argue whether these stories are true, whether people were ever truly buried alive during the height of the plague, mistaken for dead in their fevered stillness. Some say yes, others say the stories were exaggerations. Fear made flesh. You listen and believe both. The fire crackles. Someone strums a lute with only 3 strings. Someone else hums a tavern song that doesn't have a name anymore. You tell your own story about your cousin's escape north, the boy who promised to carry your letters, the rats with the jeweled eyes in your dreams. It's not a story with a punchline, but people listen, and that's what matters. Marcy offers a tale about a woman who set her bed on fire because she thought the plague couldn't cross flames. Burned down half the lane. She says, the other half didn't get sick. Go figure, there's laughter again. It feels good. One man toasts to the rats. If they're gonna outlive us, they might as well get drunk too. Someone else toasts to the puppeteer. Someone else to the moon. You toast to silence the good kind. By the end of the night, the barrels are lighter, and so are your shoulders. Bartholomew stands to leave. Graves won't dig themselves. Someone salutes him, nor will they pay you more than a turnip. He grins. Turnips more than a blessing these days. You walk part of the way home with him. He carries a shovel strapped to his back, like a soldier's sword. You ask how many graves he's dug. Stopped counting after 500, he says. Started naming the shovels instead. This one's Agnes. You don't ask why. You just thank him for the stories, for the weight he carries so others don't have to. Back at home, you sit on your steps a while, listening to the last echoes of laughter fade behind the roofs. You think of the dead not as numbers, but as stories left untold. And the living still whispering, still singing, still toasting in the dark. You fall asleep with a smile, and dream of ghosts nodding in approval. The toy is still sitting on the steps, a carved wooden horse, barely longer than your palm, with one wheel missing and blue paint peeling in little curls. It's been there for 3 days now, maybe 4. No one picks it up. No one moves it. You pass it each morning, and every time you feel it like a tiny punch to the chest. The child is gone. Which one? You're not sure. There were 3 on this street you used to see playing in the dust, with little brass buttons and bits of broken crockery. One had red ribbons in her hair. One liked to hum while she skipped. The third had a laugh like a hiccup. You haven't heard any of them in over a week. Some disappear with fanfare, a cart drawn up, a mother wailing, a priest mumbling a psalm from a distance. But others just vanish. No cross, no scream, no ceremony. One day, they're jumping rope. The next, their toy horse is the only thing that remembers they were ever there. You sit down beside it. You don't touch it. Of course, that feels like a rule, even if no one said it aloud. But you look at it closely. Someone carved a tiny heart into the belly, faded now, but still there, still trying. You think about the children of London. You used to see them everywhere playing, helping at stalls, running errands with sticky hands and loud opinions. They used to bring noise and motion and mischief. Now, silence. You walk to the market and spot a boy standing behind a basket of onions. He's maybe 12, pale, eyes too big for his face. He watches you like you might vanish too. You ask him his name. He says, Doesn't matter. You give him a coin anyway. Historians still struggle to estimate how many children died in the Great Plague. Records are spotty, and many families didn't or couldn't report every death. Some suggest as many as 1 in 3 children vanished from the city. Others say the numbers were worse, but the truth hides in doorways and alleys, in cribs never unwrapped, in lullabies never finished. You pass a shuttered school. Chalk still marks the last lesson Latin. Maybe. You run your fingers along the windowsill and think of hands smaller than yours gripping quills, squinting at lessons about kings and rivers. On the walk home, you hear singing. A girl's voice. Young, uncertain. You follow the sound. It leads to a back garden where a woman hums while brushing her daughter's hair. They don't see you. The girl is maybe 6, and she's still got that invincible roundness to her cheeks. The woman pauses, then whispers something in the child's ear that makes her laugh. The laugh is quick and sharp, and so alive it stops you in your tracks. You walk away quietly. At your door, you sit again by the toy horse. You think of burying it, maybe saying a few words, but you can't. Instead, you pick a flower, just a sprig of something yellow from the edge of the lane, and tuck it gently next to the toy. No name, no need, just remembrance. You think of stories you've heard in recent days of whole families slipping away in the night, not from sickness, but fear, taking nothing but bread and boots, hoping that somewhere beyond the city walls, life might still be warm. One woman told you she woke to find the cradle empty and the back door swinging. No footprints, no note, just silence. She's been silent herself ever since. Marcy started knitting tiny socks again. For when the children come back, she said, you didn't have the heart to argue. You see a chalk drawing on a wall near the chapel, stick figures holding hands, one with wings. You don't know who drew it. You don't want to. That night, you dream of children laughing, chasing the rats out of alleyways with wooden spoons. In your dream, the city is filled with little feet again, bare and bold. You wake up smiling, and then you remember. But outside, the toy horse is still there, and the flower hasn't wilted yet. You hear it before you see it, raised voices, hurried footsteps, the tense electricity that crackles just before a crowd becomes a mob. It starts near St. and Martin's Lane. Someone's shouting about sorcery, another yells back about bread prices. Then comes the sharp crack of something breaking wood, maybe a market stall, maybe something worse. You slip into a doorway and watch. It's a strange crowd, half fury, half fear. Someone hurls a rotten apple at a constable. Another man screams that the priests have brought the plague on purpose. A woman stands on a crate, waving a Bible with one hand and a clump of herbs in the other. You fools, she shrieks. It's not the rats or the cats. It's them, the ones who pretend to heal, the ones who hoard the good air. You realize with a twist in your gut that she means the doctors, the priests, maybe even the apothecaries. Maybe you. The constables move in, slowly, cautiously, not because of resistance, they're used to that, but because they're just as scared. No one wants to get too close to anyone anymore. The plague has turned even law enforcement into dancers, all wide arcs and sidesteps, and then someone throws a brick. It misses, but the sound, the sharp, final crack, sets the whole square alight. Suddenly it's chaos. People shove, scream. A cart overturns. A man in a black robe is yanked from his steps and shoved into the street. You can't tell if he's a doctor, or a scholar, or just unlucky. Someone slaps him, another spits, and you freeze, because you recognize the look on their faces. It's not just anger, it's exhaustion, rage wrapped around helplessness like wet cloth around fire. It's what happens when people have run out of places to put their grief. Someone yells, "The churches are poisoned." Another shouts, "The mayor's hiding in silver sheets." Rumors swirl like smoke. You hear wild ones that the river's cursed, that foreign coins carry sickness, that the moon itself has turned against London. Historians still argue how much unrest truly erupted during the plague. Some say these were isolated sparks, rare and quickly stamped out. Others believe there was a steady undercurrent of revolt, a pressure cooker that nearly blew. All agree that fear turns quickly to blame, and blame to fire. You see a priest trying to calm the crowd. He holds up a cross and starts a prayer, but someone grabs his robe and pulls him down. He stumbles, terrified. A woman tries to shield him. She gets pushed aside. You don't know what to do. You're not brave. You're not trained. You're just there. So you run. You slip through the alley behind the butchers, your heart pounding against your ribs like a trapped bird. You don't stop until you're 3 streets away and the shouting has dulled to a distant roar. You duck into Marcy's. She's lighting candles, eyes wide. "They're blaming the baker now," she says quietly. "Said he bakes bodies into loaves." You blink. He's got rickets. He can barely lift a tray. Marcy shrugs. Doesn't matter. Fear doesn't check facts. You sit with her for a while, both of you listening. Somewhere in the distance, bells ring, not the kind that toll for the dead, the kind that mean trouble. Later, you venture out again, carefully. The square is quiet now. Someone's cleaning up the smashed cart. The man in the robe is gone. A few windows are broken. One shop has been boarded up hastily, with a painted sign across it. "We are clean. Leave us be." You walk past a wall where someone's written in charcoal, "The air kills." But so do we. You don't know who wrote it, but you understand it. You think about the watchmen who now carry sticks longer than their arms, not for defense, but for distance. You think about the constables who patrol in pairs, eyes scanning for coughs instead of crimes. You think about the food hoarders, the water thieves, the ones who whisper in doorways and slip knives under cloaks. Marcy said something earlier that sticks with you. This isn't just plague anymore. It's fear, and fear wants a body. You believe her. That night, you block your door with a chair, not because of illness, but because of people. You lie awake listening for footsteps, for voices, for the snap that starts it all again. And when you finally sleep, your dreams are of fire, not cleansing, like before, but consuming. London burning, not from plague, but from itself. The air feels different. It's thinner, sharper, as if the city itself has exhaled after months of holding its breath. You step outside and your fingers tingle, not from sickness, from cold. The frost has come. At first, it's only a glaze whitens the windows, dusts the roof tiles, crunches faintly underfoot, like someone sprinkling broken glass, but it builds. And with it, something new, a hush that isn't born of fear, but change. You pull your coat tighter and walk. Each breath curls into the air in ghostly tendrils. The smell of smoke is softer now, less of burning herbs, more of warming hands, and the city wounded, groaning. Scorched London starts to slow down. You pass a woman cracking ice from her steps with the heel of her boot. Finally, she mutters, as though winter had been deliberately late. Maybe now it'll stop. You nod, because that's what everyone's whispering. The cold will kill the plague. It's been said for months, in pubs and prayers and pamphlets. Plague hates the frost. Plague flees from snow. Plague cannot ride cold air. Historians still debate how true that is. Some claim that the fleas and rats the suspected carriers died off or went dormant in the colder months, slowing the spread. Others argue it was just correlation, not cause. But standing here, cheeks red, breath thick, you feel like winter might actually be on your side. You find Marcy hauling firewood. Her sleeves are patched, her nose red as a berry. She doesn't complain. Been sleeping better, she says. No coughing outside last night, just owls. You share a look that says everything cautious relief. At the market, yes, it's still there. Barely people are bundled in layers, talking again, not loudly, but audibly. You see a boy making snowballs and throwing them at a post. Someone scolds him, half-heartedly. No one stops him. Even the rats are fewer. The city feels manageable. You buy a small bag of chestnuts and roast them over your hearth, just like you used to, back when London smelled more like cinnamon and less like panic. The scent fills the room. For a while, you pretend it's a normal December. You visit a churchyard dusted in white. The gravestones are half buried, softened. There are no fresh crosses today. That feels important. A priest lights candles by the gate and hums. Not a hymn, just a tune. One you remember from childhood, but can't name. You hum along as you walk. Back home, you notice your candles burning slower. Your herbs are drying. Your vinegar pot's less pungent. You haven't lit a sage fire in 2 days. No new letters sit unsent. No new neighbors cough through the walls. You start unblocking your window at night, letting in the cold, welcoming it. You watch as the frost creeps up the panes in delicate, spiraling shapes like the city is being gently stitched back together by ice. You sit by it, wrapped in every scarf you own, sipping weak tea and breathing quietly. This isn't over. Not yet. You know that. Everyone does. But there's something about winter, about the way it blankets pain without pretending to erase it. It slows the rot. It stills the panic. It says, wait, let the world settle. And you do. You dream, for the first time in weeks, of spring. Of markets bursting with fruit, of children shouting, of sunlight through clean glass, of walking into a room and not checking the door behind you. In your dream, someone says, the worst has passed. You wake before you can ask them if it's true. Outside, frost crunches beneath hooves. A cart rolls by with supplies, not bodies. You catch a glimpse of flour sacks, apples, maybe even meat. A woman shouts. Fresh eggs and people don't scatter. You stand in the doorway for a long time, face turned toward the pale morning sun. It doesn't warm you much, but it doesn't burn either. The wind carries quiet now, not the stillness of death, the heavy, suffocating quiet that choked the summer months, but something gentler. A pause, perhaps. A resting note in a long, painful song. You walk the same path you've taken for months, past the alley where you once saw the puppet show, past the scorched patch where the cleansing fires hissed and flared, past Mrs. Lyle's doorstep, where the cats no longer gather, even they seem subdued, curling like question marks on rooftops dusted with frost. The red crosses are fading. Some have been scraped off with pocket knives and broom handles. Others are simply worn by rain and time, like scars you can almost forget. Doors once sealed tight are opening again, not wide, not boldly, but enough to let in light and let out breath. You see children on your walk, not many, but enough. A girl chalks stars onto the wall of a shuttered bakery. A boy kicks a stone down the lane. You nod as you pass. He nods back. It feels like a miracle. You pass a house you thought was empty. A curtain twitches. A face appears. Someone survived. You don't know their name. Doesn't matter. You smile anyway. The city still limps. Saint Giles has entire streets with no tenants. The churchyard remains full. The ground uneven from too many hurried burials, but weeds are sprouting in the cracks. Life does that. It pokes up where no one asked it to, often too soon, often awkwardly, but it grows. You return to the bills of mortality one last time. The numbers have dropped. Plague deaths this week, 112. Other causes, 786. Total under 1,000. You remember when it was 7 times that. You don't need to check the names. You already know who's missing. Marcy's socks sit folded on your table, 4 tiny pairs in soft wool, all the same size. You ask her what she'll do with them. She shrugs. Give them away. Maybe keep one, just in case. You keep walking. London is not healed, but it breathes. That in itself feels like defiance. The apothecary is sweeping his threshold. The puppet man he's carving again. A new figure, perhaps. Maybe it's death again. Maybe it's a jester. Maybe it's both. You visit the rooftop where you once sang with strangers. The fire pit is cold, but the stones are still there. Someone's left a note tucked beneath one. We're still here. You sit. You watch the sun creep up over the spires. You listen to the wind twist through chimney pots. You think of those who didn't make it. Those who vanished without farewell. Those who were buried with no name, no song, no stone, and you carry them forward, in memories, in jokes, in songs hummed under breath. You carry them in every step through a city that refused to die. And as frost melts slowly from rooftops, as windows creak open, as boots step hesitantly back into light, you realize something else. You didn't just live through the plague, you remembered it, and somehow, that's the most human thing of all. The city slows, shadows stretch long across the cobbles, doors are shut again not from fear, but rest. Candles flicker gently in windows, their warm glow softening every cracked beam and soot-stained sill. You sit by your fire, a thin blanket pulled around your shoulders, listening to the gentle clink of cooling pots and the creak of old timbers. Outside, the air is crisp, but calm, and the sky is that deep velvet blue that only appears when the world is finally quiet. Your hands are warm, your lungs are steady, and your heart, though worn, though aching, is still here. You close your eyes, just for a moment. You think of the streets you walked, the voices you heard, the bells that tolled, the faces that smiled even through fear. You think of the laughter around fires, the little notes left in windows, the wooden horse no one touched, and you let yourself soften, let your breath deepen, let your thoughts slow, because this journey has been long, and now the night welcomes you. Sleep gently, friend. Let the cold wash over the fever. Let the silence cradle the memory. Let the soft wind carry the weight you no longer need to hold. You are safe. You are here. And the city sleeps with you.